People think we're in a hype bubble. Maybe. But in 10 years from now, we're going to see the actual real value of where we're at and how valuable digital assets really are.
Welcome to the Alpha Podcast, made possible by West Coast Customs and Neverland Studios, hosted by me, Jussup. Before we begin, I want to remind everybody that what you're about to hear is not financial advice, nor do we endorse any of the guests or projects on the show. This is simply meant for educational purposes, and oftentimes I'm learning about these projects in real time as we're recording them. While this is brought to you by West Coast Customs and Neverland Studios, the opinions expressed are of my own or the guests, and not of the companies. So without further ado, let's tap into the episode.
My name is John Knopf, landscape photographer. I've been shooting photography for the last, 15 years. My primary source of income has been basically selling prints online and through my galleries. I opened a gallery 10 years ago and then closed them all when the pandemic hit. And that's kind of how I got into NFTs and crypto and everything else.
Yeah, so how did you fall into the Web3 space, crypto?
Yeah, it's a funny story. So when the pandemic hit, I kind of was at the point where I was like, the government's not going to save us. Like, we need to be able to make some money, and my galleries were shut down, and I basically, I owed money on them. Like, I had to figure out a way to make some type of income and get out of those galleries.
Yeah.
I decided to start, trading stocks, getting, online, flipping stock, and it was just, I was terrible at it, but I was, progressing. It was, a few months of it, and I was like, this sucks, dude. All the research I do, every time, I do it, a hedge fund just comes in and destroys me. I'm like, this is just, and then the GameStop movement happened and all this, and I was trolling Clubhouse at the time, and my friends and I, we had this group called the Troll Team 6. Shout out Troll Team 6, by the way. But we would go and we'd start these flat Earth rooms and just ridiculous Clubhouse rooms. And I was drunk one night running a flat Earth room with Troll Team, and I stumbled into an NFT photography room. I I had heard about NFTs from Gary Vee and all these people, and I'd seen it on YouTube, and I was I had some virtual land, so I kind of had an idea of what NFT was.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, I had heard people had attached their art to it, and I was I didn't really understand the tech behind it. So I sat in on this NFT photography room, and my mind was just blown, because I'm a landscape photographer who I got into it with a bunch of old heads, a bunch of old guys who just walk around with canes and beards and and it's I didn't know that anybody my age was even into landscape photography, because I never fell into the Instagram scene. I was kind of on my own scene. I was in the Twitter scene. So it was I was an early day Twitter, and I never transitioned over to Instagram.
Which is funny, because that's where photography...
Right, exactly. That's where photography was. But I was already selling prints, so when I saw Instagram come out and I saw everybody posting their work, I was why is everyone giving their work away for free?
Yeah.
That's just immediately what hit me. I was everyone's giving their work away for free, and they're not getting paid for this.
Yeah.
And I was I'd rather just continue to sell prints and promote through Twitter and things like that. So I just stuck to my side.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea that all these people were out there that were my age. And when I'm in this photography room, and there's just a bunch of people my age, and we're all just just vibing about photography and landscapes, and they start talking about NFTs, and then Blau comes in and just starts buying people's NFTs, and the photography, by the way, hadn't been minted. Maybe there was a handful of people who had minted photography.
It's still probably an untapped...
It is essentially, but it was there just wasn't a ton of it yet. And I mean, there's definitely a lot more back then. I don't even think there was a landscape photographer, as far as I know, that had minted. Maybe nobody, as far as I know. So I looked at this and I was this is an opportunity, I feel for a whole new avenue to make money.
Yeah.
And that's literally, I just was this is a cash grab. That's how I looked at NFTs. I was this is a complete cash grab. And then I spent 2 weeks in the community and started really vibing with everybody and meeting everybody on Clubhouse. And I realized this was not the angle that I wanted to go. I was there's something more to this. It's way bigger than just making money off art. There's a future technology here that could literally revolutionize the entire financial industry. So I was looking over kind of my options of what I could do. I was well, what am I capable of doing in this space? Well, I can mint my photography and push for photography, because everyone was screaming animate, 3D, that still photography will never sell on the blockchain, because we had seen these big sales from Beeple,
right,
and and all this 3D animated, and there wasn't a market, and there was no collectors at the time for it. So me putting my work out there was kind of a risk factor, because I have collectors in the real world. What's it going to affect my my integrity of my art? But how I saw it is this is an opportunity not only to make an environmental impact, because I look at it as, if I ship a print to Dubai, that's probably a lifetime of what I would use on the blockchain.
Right.
Just one print alone. So I started photography in the belief of sustainability and presenting the world in a beautiful place so that people would see it and say, oh, we need to save the planet. This was like everything that I kind of stood behind. I was like, this is, I don't have to use any resources. We get to, mint it on the blockchain. This is digital. There's provenance. There was so much to it that I just saw so many opportunities for other photographers to get into it. So my idea is I'm going to mint my photography and just not even look at what the market was, which there wasn't any anyway. Put my work, at like 5 or 10 ETH or something like that, and just why not? Because I've traveled the world to like take my pictures. I only have maybe like 250 in my portfolio. I just couldn't let my work go for nothing.
Yeah.
And they were all one of ones. And it wasn't like I went into the space like I've got like this check mark on it on Twitter and I've got galleries. And it was like I was coming from like this really humble place where I looked at everybody's work and had imposter syndrome and was like, shit, everybody's better than me. They should be pricing their work higher than mine. Like I almost just wanted to like incentivize, like you guys should really price your work higher because it's amazing. Like I was looking at just some incredible work out there and it's just like immediate imposter syndrome. But I minted, I put it out there. It took months to finally sell. And when it finally sold, I realized, like how much of an opportunity there was just for other photographers to help them, bring them into the space. And that's where I started getting really involved in hosting rooms for photographers, bringing them on board, bringing photographers from Instagram on board, and we kind of like transitioned over into what is now Rug Radio. And when we were on Spaces and kind of just like blew up into that, and that's where I kind of got into hosting Photo Fridays and blowing up photographers, and yeah.
Yeah, so I do a lot of videography, and then I also do photography as well. So a lot of this is like, it resonates with me. When I first stumbled into the space, it was the very same thing of like, oh, it needs to be animated. Maybe I need to find a digital artist that can help me take my work and turn it into something.
That's where I was, yeah.
And it's like, this is art still. It's like, it's our version of art.
100%.
I do a lot of drone video stuff, and it's like, I've thought about, well, maybe I'll partner with somebody. And I think there is a space in the NFT world where you can take any type of art. There's no like one way, this is how you do it, and figure out how to utilize it. And especially,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I think a lot of even past art side of it, like NFTs are going to be utilized for so many more things.
Yeah, it's not even like, I think we're like, we're scratching the surface. I think I read a tweet like 6 months ago that said, we're so early that the only utility of NFTs is PFPs.
Yeah, right. Well, so I just read an article. I live in Florida, and there's a house in St. Pete that the deed is actually being auctioned through an NFT. This episode is brought to you by Neverland. And no, we're not talking about the California ranch. You're probably wondering, aren't you a founder? Yes, I am, and I'm not here to bullshit you. Along with my two cousins, Mark and Kurt, our partners Rob and Evan, and the world-famous West Coast Customs, yes, the guys behind Pimp My Ride, we're building a car customization, collecting, and racing game on the blockchain called Empire Ave. Empire Ave will sit in the Neverland world, along with the MetaWhips and the Meta Racer minigame, the Crypto Dad Dadlands mower racing game, and the ever-expanding metaverse that's going to continue to grow. You can find out more by visiting www.neverland.io. That's www.neverland.io. Let's get back into the episode.
When I read the white paper for Ethereum, that's where I really got my conviction for NFTs, because I saw this being built on layer 2. Looking forward of what we could do with it, it's selling houses on the blockchain, selling cars, dental, house, everything, health records, everything will be eventually on some type of blockchain.
Right.
And so looking at that, I was like, well, then there has to be a huge space for photography, because if you look at photography, it's the really digitally native. It's one of the only digitally native arts that I can think of at the moment that's right immediately on an actual hard drive that can be transferred over into an NFT, into the marketplace, and it's the original storyteller when you look at photography. It's the think about, let's say 5 years from now when we're minting pictures of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King and these historical photos, and we're looking at the provenance of that, and these are the storytelling, the original storytellers.
Right.
That I feel has so much value that we haven't even really explored yet. And so I think the 3D animation, Beeple's piece, all of this opened the doorway for so many other genres of art. I'm seeing yoga getting minted to the blockchain, and it's selling.
The yoga photos. I think I've seen them too.
The yoga girl.
Yeah.
The new yoga girl. She's killing it.
I've seen that, yeah.
And there's so many, but I think I remember her in early Clubhouse, wondering, is there a space for me?
Right.
And it's there's so much opportunity that I mean, I've seen mint passes, sold for strategies of trading for stocks, getting into alpha groups. Like, there's just so much opportunity. We haven't even begun yet. We haven't even scratched the surface.
That's a good transition to what are you looking forward to the most in this space? That's a loaded question, huh?
Yeah, I mean, for me, because I'm an artist, I look forward to so many artists being able to enter the space and finally getting paid for their work in a justified way without having to sacrifice their value for exposure. For 15 years, I've taken photos, and 10 of them I never got paid. I toured with musicians, I toured with Vegas people. They all were very entitled and just assumed that it's just going to come to them for free. To this day, these people even use my photos and don't credit me. I mean, that's just how it is. And these are so-called friends. That's just how that world works.
I know the feeling.
And it sucks, yeah. And they look at us like we're not artists, and it's like, dude, you're making music, you're an artist, and how can you take my time and not pay me for it? It's mind-blowing, but I mean, some of the most famous people out there are taking advantage of these situations. So how I see the benefit of the blockchain is that won't happen anymore. And I mean, that was the original reason that we actually opened, Photovolt, which was the idea that we could give exposure for different artists to different collectors without having them, sacrifice anything. Like, for example, with the Photovolt that we had, there's 8 artists in it. Let's say someone likes a piece of Drift's work, but they've never seen my work. Now they go into our Photovolt and they see Drift's work and they see my work and they go, oh, wow, I like his work too. Now I'm a collector of all of this and I want to go into his work and start collecting that. There's exposure that was just paid for. It wasn't sacrificed. There was no value lost. And this is the type of thing moving forward that I really think that is like the best part about the decentralized place. I mean, even looking at like what we're doing with Rug Radio, a whole decentralized media platform for the people, by the people, and you're getting paid to basically learn, to learn,
right.
And that's the future, I think, of where society is heading, from tokenization to homework to, everything can be tokenized for the future to create these DAOs and systems. I mean, I'm watching like cities, like these small like infrastructures create their own DAOs, their own block, their own area where they can reside and create like anything that they want, whether it's art or incubating companies. Like, I just think that the future is finally, I think, in our hands if we can get to a more decentralized marketplace. And that's not the ultimate goal of crypto. I think the ultimate goal of crypto is self-sovereignty, financial, independence. When you look at that for artists, what better place to put that much money into the hands of people who are creating that want to make the world a better place?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that you said there that I want to touch on.
It was a loaded question. You're going to get a loaded answer.
Yeah. So one of the things that, as you're talking about blocks, like I guess a great analogy is like homeowners associations, right? Like you could literally set up a homeowners association as a DAO, and if you had governance tokens, you could have more sway on what happens.
100%. I mean, we were talking about bunker DAO today, of like how we could totally build a bunker somewhere in like the middle of the desert, and we'd have bunker DAO where all of degens, if shit goes down, we're going to bunker DAO.
There's a bunker DAO. That's hilarious. And then I want to touch on the Photovolt again.
Yeah.
I guess explain to me that whole. What is the Photovolt? So you created a...
Yeah, so Photovolt's, it's a fascinating concept. When I got into the space back in January, I met someone named Mel, and she's actually the person who does all the tokenization for Rug Radio. And we started talking just about, the ideas of DeFi and, the future of where Web3 was headed. And we wanted to create some type of, marketplace or a system or something where it would allow people to become entry-level collectors without having to lose value of your art. We had been talking about this for months, but we just didn't have the full concept of what we could do. And it was one day that we were sitting on a stage. It was actually Dee's. He is the, I think the vibe coordinator of Fractional. That's I think his position.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, full vibe coordinator.
That's a cool title.
Yeah, right. And so he was literally just talking about I think they were going to fractionalize a punk, and they were talking about how they were going to fractionalize a punk and everyone would be able to own a piece of this. And I was sitting on the stage and I was like, dude, this is an opportunity, to be able to give everybody a piece of our work without having to sell it for less than what we feel it's worth. And so I reached out to my photographer friends who I knew had kept a higher value for their art, like Kath Simard, Ravi Vora, and Ben Strauss. And they had all been selling their pieces for 5 to 10 ETH. And so I wanted them to be on board with this because this was the idea of people who could get, entry-level pieces with us. We created this vault where we put all 4 photographers in it, and then three pieces per photographer, so 12 photos total. We then fractionalized the entire vault and sold it off in pieces in a type of token.
So the whole vault. So essentially you would own all 12.
Exactly. And it was an asset-based token. So there wasn't really like liquidity. It's just an asset-based token, and then you own the actual pieces. And then what the idea is that if the vault ever gets like sold out, everybody wins.
Right.
Everybody benefits, but at the same time, you're also owning a piece of Cass work, a piece of my, Ravi's, Ben. And so the first vault sold out, I think, in like 30 minutes, and we were so like mind blown by this.
How did that compare money-wise?
Well, so we valued the first vault, and I don't remember the exact numbers, so I don't want to screw this up, but I'd say we valued the first vault at like 150 ETH or something, 105 ETH, somewhere around there. Mel's going to kill me for screwing this up.
But it was essentially more or less than if you were to have bought in each one individually.
It was, so we basically averaged them to 7 ETH per image, I believe.
So it still would have brought it down a little bit.
So yeah, we were giving a value to the collectors, as well as we were hoping that this would incentivize people to not necessarily invest in us, but just to believe that our future of our careers was going to go further.
Right. Yeah.
It's like our reputation, we weren't going to sacrifice it to just run off with the money. We wanted to further our careers. We wanted to keep moving forward. So we wanted everybody to be a part of this, because we really thought that this could be like a way to create an opening. And there's going to be, I think, more fractional votes. Like, this was the idea, to create one of these first ones so more artists could jump on board and create new unique ideas. And that's what we did with Photovolt too, was we brought on, Drift, Alejandro, Dave Krugman, and Jan Silva. And so those were guys who, like, I just thought were killing it in space. Incredible photographers, had done their time. And that was like the most important thing. Have you done your time? Like, have you sat in rooms? Do you show up? Are you a part of the community? And all these dudes had been just such a huge part of the community. And I call Kath a dude because she's like my bro. Like, we literally like text bro, like, what up, dude? So like, we all just kind of like, just let's create like this crazy concept where like we're gonna just fractionalize all these pieces, sell it off, and it worked out really well. And in the end, we actually ended up merging with Time Magazine, and now they have CCO rights over, not full CCO rights, but exclusive rights over some of the images to be able to use in Time Magazine and any type of like publication that we authorize.
Cool.
So that, I think, makes the vault even more valuable in the end. And all these pieces sit on Foundation, so it's like the marketplace is affected by it with Foundation. Time is affected. All of these things came into play. And honestly, none of it was planned, other than we just thought, dude, this would be such a cool way for everybody to be able to collect our work.
Yeah, I think that's what's really cool about this space in general, is like everybody is trying something new. And you see a lot of duplicate projects and people trying to do the same thing, but I think like people who are experimenting are rewarded, because it's like, oh, this is new, this is unique, this is
Well, that's the best part about being early, is that everything is basically new. So you can literally constantly reinvent the wheel, which is so exciting for people like me, who like, I love being on the edge of things. Like, once it gets like mainstream, it's just, I'm out. I want anything a part of it.
You're an artist.
Right, like I want to be on that edge of everything, and it's like right now, dude, we're on this edge of like creating this whole like dynamic of Web3, and Congress hates us, and we're fighting, against the system and bring down, and it's like, it literally places everything well of like my growing up from watching like in the 90s Hackers to SLC Punk to Anarchy Forever, and like all of these things like play into who I am. And like looking at this, I was like, dude, this is everything like that I want for the world, for my children.
This is a moment of disruption. Like, it seriously
it's evolution.
Yeah.
It's not like we keep saying it's a revolution, and sure, but we are evolving. Like, we are evolving finance, education, how we're doing education with Rug Radio, like we're literally teaching people about DAOs, and so we can hand over our project to people who are educated and understand what they're doing,
right?
And can move the project forward, because they're going to be voting. They're going to control the DAO. This is the whole point of it, is that we built a system so that everybody could own it, and we can put it into the ecosystem. And the best part about it is, we didn't do it to make a ton of money. We put 70% into the DAO, so the company actually thrives. Right. We maintained our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that this market and this platform will hopefully continue forever and just create. It's never ending. We've partnered now with Ledger and all these different companies, and we're just bringing things forward that I think for Web3, that's what we want to see for the future of everything when it comes to platforms, curation, and decentralization.
Yeah, that's amazing. And tomorrow, that's something you guys will touch on significantly, right?
Yeah. Farouk and I will come down and we'll talk about Rug Radio.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to go over that.
Yeah.
A lot to digest.
One thing I've been asking everybody, so you're obviously selling NFTs. Do you collect as well?
I collect a lot. I'm actually an original collector. I wasn't selling at first. The only way to move photography forward was by buying it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a ton of ETH, but I did have Solana at the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I had converted a lot of Solana over to ETH and started buying up people's NFTs and mostly photographies. I mean, I was the first person to buy a 2 ETH photo. No one had really done that. Like, they were like, what? And it was just a photo. You're crazy, dude.
Yeah.
But that was the idea, that if I started pushing these things forward, and I mean, I was swooping up on every woman's stage, like trying to buy up all women's art. There were photographers, collage artists, and I mean, I think I've collected more of my friends' art now than I've collected in PFPs and everything. And that's like how I started, was flipping PFPs, just moving that forward. We started collecting, I got into the apes and flipped those and bought more art.
Yeah, that helps, right?
It does help when you mint a few apes.
Yeah. What is the last thing you minted?
The most recent thing I minted probably was Cass Metascapes. She's doing a project called the Metascapes, which is like an AI-generated landscape form of art.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we haven't seen anything like that. So that's the innovative way of like Web3. Kath came together with some homies. They created a project where it's AI-generated landscapes, and I think that's the last project I dived into.
You'll have to show me that after this.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some cool stuff with them, because I think like what they're doing, like, and then there's like, I don't know if you've heard of Transient Labs. So that's Ben Strauss, the guy who I brought into Photovolt. He's doing something called Transient Labs. Have you seen like the photo book or any of the? So there's like the photo book online that you can actually like flow through the pages on the blockchain, and it's animated.
What?
Yeah, so you click on it and it literally flows through the page.
Oh, that's cool.
Ben got into writing smart contract. The guy's a genius, and I'm so glad I brought him into the Photo Vault, because like he's an absolute rocket scientist genius, and he's like, I'm gonna make smart contracts now. I was like, okay, dude. Like,
I would go from photography to smart contracts.
I was like, good luck with that. And obviously he just wrecked it, and like he's creating and now everyone's hiring. We're using him now to incorporate with Photo Fridays and Time merging, and we're going to create a whole subscription-based system using Transient Labs for magazines for photography. It's like there's just endless shit to build.
Yeah, magazines for photography that are
On the
digital.
blockchain.
Yeah. See, that's cool.
Yeah, these subscription-based systems on the blockchain that Ben will be creating with Transient Labs. And shout out to Ben, he just quit his job and is going full-fledged Transient
Into
Labs.
this. Wow.
And it's just so badass to see that type of stuff. And he didn't have to sell his ape. That's the spirit, right?
Yeah, right. So was there something that they released that you minted from that, or?
So I minted something. There's a project called Lit. And it's a token that basically allows you, if you own the token, you get these free mints. And like so the first one was Neil Strauss, which was the first book on the blockchain. And you could actually use the book, you can cycle through the pages and all that stuff.
And that was done through Transient.
And Transient Labs took that on and created that. And that was Neil Strauss's, he's like, best-selling author, New York Times. And he minted his first book on the blockchain, which was just like mind-blowing. That was a part of Lit's project. And then they did like Robert De Niro and all this other stuff. But Transient Labs has been like behind a lot of these amazing tech projects. It's really cool. There's just like so much going on in this space. Like I feel like I have a decent amount of knowledge, and then like you'll talk to like Farouk or like or Deez or these guys or like Guys Galaxy, and they just like blow your mind with like blockchain, like archaeology. It's like they may not be tech wizards, but they can tell you literally when anything was minted, who it was minted by, the provenance. Like they'll just be like telling you, like, Dingling. And I'm like, dude, I can't keep track of half the people we're talking about anymore. Like there's just so many names, and they've been around for a while. Like like Deez, I think he's been in NFT since like 2018 or 17. It's like all these guys have been around for a while, so they have this like whole circle, and it's like they know each other. It's like you just have to like try to keep it, because things are moving so quickly. It's like what we saw in Web 2 is like happening like in light year speed in Web 3. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like a month feels like multiple years.
I feel dumber every day. Like I thought you would feel smarter. I feel dumber every day.
Well, try to do like these podcasts. So I've been going to some of the different Solana events, the hacker houses that they've had, and I've interviewed a bunch of people, and I've interviewed devs and stuff like that. And every time it's just like, even just from they're working on a few weeks ago to where they're at. I'm like, what?
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
You can't keep up anymore.
It's nuts.
There's just so many things coming out of the utility. It's like we haven't even, like I said, scratched the surface. It's crazy. Like imagine if we were getting paid to play The Sims when we were kids.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like I'd be so rich right now. Like I would never have to work. Like
I told my son, I'm like, dude, if you have spare time, just watch YouTube videos on NFTs. I'm like, just
please.
absorb it.
Yeah,
please.
like I'm teaching my. I'm like, she's playing Roblox. I'm like, yeah, just keep playing that game. Like, just like I remember my parents like yelling at me to get out behind the computer, and I'm like, you stay right where you are. Like, you do whatever you want.
Figure it out.
You're learning like the future of where we're headed.
Totally.
And it's like digital assets are going to be so valuable in the future. It's like people think we're in a hype bubble. Maybe. But in 10 years from now, we're going to see the actual real value of where we're at and how valuable digital assets really are.
Yeah, we're in a hype bubble, but I also think that the technology is going to stay forever.
That's the thing is then if we're in a hype bubble, we're probably in a 100-year hype bubble.
Yeah.
Because this is just going to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this is going to be embedded into things. If anything, we'll probably stop talking about NFTs or the blockchain, and I mean, people are just going to care about whether or not the user experience is good. I use this analogy all the time, but there's so many people that still don't know the difference between Wi-Fi and the internet, and that's what's going to happen. It's like people think they're getting on Instagram and getting on Instagram. You're still getting on the internet, and that's the underlying tech.
Yeah, no.
And I think that's what's going to happen is we're just going to see getting on an app or some service, and people aren't going to realize like, oh, that's running off Avalanche or Boba Network or Solana.
100%. They'll have no clue of how it's really like, the insides of everything, but they're going to be using it.
So you had Solana. Have you collected NFTs on Solana or multi-chain?
Yeah. I'm obsessed with Solana. I mean, I got in early before when it was like, like $10, $5. Like I was buying just as much as I could. When I read about what, the team behind it and just, I got really bullish with what their governance papers were leading to and the future of, when you look at blockchain and just everything that's happening, we're seeing so many different tokens come into place. I mean, we're seeing so many blockchains enter the space, right? You have to look for solid teams. I think that's really what it comes down to. That's, I think, the most important thing, even when it comes to NFTs. Looking at the DAO structure, looking at the contract, looking at the team. And not necessarily are they docs, but just the credibility behind the team.
Well, I think you had mentioned it like as an artist too. If you're looking at an artist, is this artist going to continue to pursue this career? Are they dedicated, like your beliefs in somebody and your financial belief in somebody?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if you're buying art to invest in, you need to be able to believe in the artist or the future. Like I personally, I just buy art because I love it. Like I'll just see shit on Twitter and I just buy it.
Yeah.
I really like, unless it's a PFP, I don't flip art. Like every piece of art that I've bought from artists, I've held. I mean, even the Cool Cats creator, Klon, I got an original piece from him. We traded art and I hold his piece diamond hands forever. I'll never sell that thing. I mean, even Nyla, the 12-year-old artist. Yeah, I collected her pieces originally. She had like, maybe 5 or 10 pieces minted. And they were these long necky ladies. And they were the OG ones, the original. And I saw them and I showed my girl and she was like, I love this art. And I was like, me too. I was like, it's just this like 12-year-old kid making it on her iPhone.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, and I was like, I have to buy this stuff. Like, and I was her first, purchaser. I was her first collector.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I bought up 3 of her pieces, and I was just like obsessed with what she was doing. And I started talking to her parents, and and then I met Keith Grossman, president of Time Magazine, and we brought her onto Time, and like she was just blowing up. But that was never the intention. Like I never wanted to invest in her. Her art was dope. And I was like, this is something I just want. I just collect art because I cherish it.
Yeah.
But like NFTs that are PFPs, I'll flip those all day long. Like everyone's like, are you going to hold your punk forever? I'm like, yeah, sure. When it hits 400 ETH though, that's that. At the end of the day, like I'm a huge fan. Like I think everything is art, but I would love to collect one-of-ones from all my artist friends.
Yeah, I get that.
That's just, like that's what I want to put on my walls.
How you feel about the gaming kind of side of things?
I'm stoked. I think that, I'm, disclaimer, I'm a huge investor in Star Atlas. I was a huge investor in Axie Infinity. I thought that, I saw what they were doing and thought that was kind of the future. I think, gaming and tokenizing gaming is no question. We've been paying companies how many years to make these games for us, and we never get anything that we want out of them. Right. I mean, I've been waiting for GTA 6 for like a decade, bro. Like, what?
When GTA 6?
Rockstar, you guys have billions of dollars. Like, shout out. Like, where are you at? And it's like, when you look at that, the future of gaming, if we have some type of DAO where we can help control, like, I think that's just such a cool concept where we lead, like, even like Cool Cats. I think their game is the future. I really I look at it and I know there's like a lot of FUD going on right now with the whole but that's what building is. You're going to see a lot of issues. You're going to see a lot of problems. That's the beginning. I mean, look at Ethereum in the beginning. You didn't think there was issues? Look at when we were trading Bitcoin in 2012. There was issues. I can tell you right now, we got hacked on Mt. Gox. Like shit happened. But that's what a part of building is. So it's like I look at games like Cool Cats and all these things, and I'm like, this is the future of where NFTs are probably headed. And like I know this is like the year of photography, but I also think this is going to be the year of gaming.
Yeah, we'll have to tell you a little bit about the game we're building. So.
Oh, all right.
Do you have any car NFTs?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't have any car NFTs.
We might have to change that for
Let's
you.
make it happen. Yeah, let's make it happen.
But yeah, well, thanks for coming on. Where can people find you?
Twitter, we're on Rug Radio pretty much every single day. Shout out to Rug Radio. Baroque and I and Mel were all the co-founders of it. We created it to just be a decentralized platform for the people. You can find me on Twitter all day long, John Knopf Photos. And yeah, I'm always basically just leading photography rooms and educating and onboarding more photographers. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time, man.
Dude, thank you. This has been a pleasure, and we'll be here tomorrow again to talk more about Rug Radio.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having me, man.